Welcome, everybody, to episode 8 of the Bullseye Podcast. It is Hate Week. Also, it's Thanksgiving week. We got a fun show. We're going to go over football and what a disaster that is. Go over women's soccer. And
Carl's going to try not to burst into tears during that.
Yep.
Teams that are actually trying to win.
Yep. And we're gonna tap into basketball, and after that, we're gonna do our predictions for the UCF game, and we'll have a new segment where we dive through the crap that we've been through the last few days and catch on to what we are thankful for from our time at USF or related to USF in general. But let's get started. Let's talk football.
Yeah.
Do we have to?
Honestly, what are we going to say that we haven't said already? It's just gone from just one disaster to the next, and hooray, we are finally bowl ineligible.
I mean, I have fully jumped 2 feet onto the Fire Charlie bandwagon. I'm not holding out any hope anymore. I just want to move on and be done with it. I don't care if we pay a guy $100,000 the next 4 years.
Well, did you notice? It was more in the Cincinnati post-game show. He just looked defeated. It looks like he's accepted that.
He was defeated.
Like he knows it's a matter of when, not if at this point. We've had enough practice looking at Charlie Strong press conferences when we've lost games, and he didn't look the way he did after, I can't remember if it was Memphis or Cincinnati, where he just looked like he had been punched in the gut and he had accepted his fate.
I will say this, he actually does want to win. He just can't get it done at USF, and I think that's simply because he's not a very good coach. But
I've got nothing
for
against
everything
Charlie
that we're
Strong
saying on him, for whatever we're saying on him, at least he actually does seem to care. That's something, at least.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the fact that he's a bad coach.
I've got nothing against Charlie Strong, the man himself. From all accounts, he's a great human being, and I wish it would have worked out. I remember we were all getting out of a movie, Ryan and Carl, and we see the Twitter that we hired Charlie Strong, and we were all going nuts, and we were thinking what a great hire this was. I wish this would have worked out. It just hasn't, and it's nothing personal against the guy, but this isn't going to cut it.
I don't care if he's a good man or not. Everyone knows I've been on the bandwagon of firing him since he blamed the players for their performance last year and didn't take any responsibility as a coach himself. That doesn't strike me as something a coach should do, and it seems like ever since Charlie blamed the players last season for the performance of the football team after they lost basically every single game after they went 7-0, because they were 7-0 once. I've been on the anti-Charlie bandwagon. I wanted him gone ever since that day, and you guys can vouch for me, that's true.
That is accurate.
Because a coach never blames the players. It's a team effort. If the coaching is bad, the players will not play for him, and they don't play for Charlie. This season, they opened with a 49-0 loss to Wisconsin. We all thought, all right, that's fine. They have the best running back in college football. They're number 13 in the country. We'll bounce back. We lost to Georgia Tech, who we beat last year. That's the first sign of regression. Blasted the doors off of South Carolina State. That's to be expected. Got walloped by SMU.
That was
beat
bad.
Connecticut, which is to be expected. Beat BYU, which I
that was unexpected.
That was
a good game.
I thought
that was
maybe
a good game. That was in fact an upset.
I thought maybe there's a chance they got it together after everything. Nope. 35-3 loss to Navy. And from there, they've been wishy-washy. You know, you beat East Carolina, you beat all the easy teams, right? And you have your big You have your big win against BYU, who is, they were not great, but it was a good team win, right? You thought maybe there's a chance here. We were all happy. And then they've lost every single game since. And the level of competition has only gotten stronger, right? The Temple game, we only scored 7 points. The Cincinnati game, we only scored 17 points. The Memphis game, we only scored 10 points.
Club hockey yesterday outscored football 11-10.
Yeah. We've scored 34 points in the last 3 games.
Quick maths.
And part of the reason I will say I was a little bit quicker to get on the Fire Charlie bandwagon than I was with Taggart, because I was a little bit slower to get on that. And part of me was wondering, it's like, it took Taggart, 2.5 years to really put it together. But there was something after the first quarter of this year where it's not getting better. The only way that could have changed my opinion was to win Temple, which would have somehow kept us alive in the division. Played well, but nowhere near good enough to win. And then Cincinnati played pretty well for the most part and, didn't get the job done for whatever reason. That I still won't put Cincinnati on Charlie, but 49-10 on senior day, show some pride for the love of God.
There's no pride left, Phil.
No, there's
nothing to fight for.
So something I think we do need to think about is the fact that Memphis is in fact a very, very good team. Sure. That said, and yes, they were going to always score a whole bunch of points on us. That was really never in question.
But we're only what?
The first drive implied that we were going to do a hell of a lot better than we actually ended up doing in that game. And that's really the most annoying thing. Because after the first drive, the offense basically did its impression of the Blues Brothers car after they get to the end of the movie. And the whole thing literally just falls apart suddenly.
But in all seriousness, we're 24 games removed from arguably one of the greatest college football games of all time, where we're 1 or 2 plays away from winning the division and going for a conference title, which we typically win, or we've had a decent shot of winning. Now, I understand we don't have Q, we don't have Mac, we don't have that same talent, but at the same time, over that amount of time, we did not get, well, at least I was thinking we were not 39 points worse than a team that we usually played pretty well. So that's just the amount of regression over the last 2 years. It's depressing. It's absolutely depressing. There's no pride left. You're absolutely right.
At this point, I feel like you got to write the check. According to the tweet from TDS last night, it's a $5 million buyout. So honestly, put any money you can into that. I even suggested, it was a joke last night. I run the Twitter page for the podcast. I suggested, do we do a GoFundMe? Do we put money towards getting rid of Charlie if USF can't afford it?
Rather put it towards the indoor practice.
No, put it towards team trees, baby. The indoor practice facility should happen.
It needs to happen.
It needs to happen.
Yes, it does.
The debate, I guess, is if you have the money to pay Charlie to go away, can you use the money from that project and postpone that?
The answer to that's no, and I will say for one big reason. Unless, because that's all basically from donations. So unless the donor calls you up and said, hey, this, I don't know, $2,000 gift that I gave you to go towards this project. Unless they call in and say, I give you authorization to put that towards firing Charlie Strong and paying his buyout, that would be a complete misuse of trust, because these donors are saying, I want this money to go towards this indoor practice facility. To use it otherwise would just be wrong.
And in addition to that, we do not have enough donors to be misusing trusts like that and possibly risking them donating in the future.
And Michael Kelly knows.
And all this is being said, knowing full well that I don't think Michael Kelly's going to do that.
No,
Michael
of course.
Kelly.
This is not a. Yeah.
And I
can't. Then what's our game plan here? How does USF get rid of Charlie Strong? We can't afford to pay him $5 million.
Well, yeah. But here's my question. The $5 million is a sunk cost. You're paying it regardless. So what's the difference between paying it? The difference is you'd have to be paying him the $5 million on top of whatever you're going to pay to for the next coach. But it's not an issue of can you find $5 million because the $5 million is gone regardless of what we do.
So if USF does end up waiting for the buyout to drop, I honestly wouldn't be wholly against it if they do, because at this point the season's a lost cause. There's no point in firing Charlie this week before the UCF game. We might as well wait for the buyout to drop so that we actually can take advantage of the buyout dropping and us having to not pay as much money to get rid of him.
When does the buyout drop?
I'm not entirely sure if it's when the season is over or when the calendar turns over. Obviously, if it's when the calendar turns over, that puts us way behind the 8 ball. But
if that's the case,
these are necessary evils.
If that's where because you have to have when you fire a coach, even when one is just not working here, you have to have a plan. And unless unless there's somebody available, if you do wait for the buyout to drop, and let's just assume that it is at the end of the semester or at the end of the calendar year, and you're behind the 8 ball, and there's nobody out there you want. If that's the path you want to go with it, you're waiting for it to drop. You almost go into the first 3 or 4 games of the year with Charlie Strong as your coach, fire him, give Kerwin Bell a 8 to 10 game audition, and see what he can do, because I still have very strong suspicions that Charlie Strong has a finger on this offense, and see what goes. And that also might be a cost control measure, but that's also going to sacrifice a season with a fan base that patience is gone. So, in short, there's really no good answer here.
I think Kerwin Bell might be or may not be in charge of the offense. We have no reason to believe at this point that he isn't in charge of the offense.
It's bad optics if he does get hired at this point, given how poor the offense has been.
You got a clean slate. You got to go get rid of everybody, clean the entire organization out from top to bottom.
Here's another thought. Honestly, I'd be surprised if Kerwin Bell even comes back to USF next year, given how poorly things have gone for him this year. I have a hard time thinking that he actually would say, "Yeah, let's come and give it another shot." Sure, why not? Because this guy left a decent head coaching opportunity and has had nothing but just get shat on by the fans, the coaches, just everything. Nothing this year has gone well for Kerwin Bell. Why would he come back?
I think the perfect scenario is they fire Charlie and they end up hiring. It won't make the fan base happy, I don't think. But if they hire a defensive coach and he just goes, "Here, Kerwin, here you go," that's how he stays.
Let me ask you guys this. I mean, just to piggyback off your thought, Tyler, how would you guys feel if, let's just say they do go the route where Charlie Strong's back because just they can't afford to write the check, and somebody gets fired, he gets fired. What about Brian Jean-Marie? Because this season's not on the defense for the most part. The defense kept us in a lot of games this year.
We wasted a really good defense this year, and that just pisses me off to no end.
Well, what if we promoted Brian Jean-Marie to head coach, and then he in turn turns to Kerwin and said, "I'm a defensive guy. You're my associate head coach. The offense is yours. I won't touch it." Is that something we'd be on board with?
I want an offensive guy this time.
Yeah,
the next head coach. I want someone who is going to run an offense and be in charge of scoring. And if it ends up being their fault that we don't score or that we're not running the right plays, then we know exactly who to point the finger at. The defense is the defense. Hire a good defensive coordinator. If our current guy gets a head coaching job somewhere, I'm sure someone will try to hire him away. Because this defense has been top notch, at least in the first half of most of our games.
The other thing is, unless your name is Nick Saban or Ed Orgeron, being a defensive guy, you're not going to be at the top of the league.
Yeah, we need a guy who understands how to score.
Maybe I'm a fan of good defense, and I don't see the harm in having a defensive-minded head coach because you need a solid defense.
The harm was what you got with Charlie Strong. The harm was someone who has absolutely no pulse on how to run an effective offense. And
but Charlie Strong, okay, but it's not just been the offense. There have been struggles throughout the 3 years here with more than just the offense.
His game management is something else.
Yeah, like keeping 2 timeouts in your pocket.
Like a lot of that comes down to effective offense. USF hasn't had effective offense since he got here. We went from having a top flight offense under Taggart, and granted, and I understand we had more talent under Taggart than we currently do under Charlie. But if you have an offense that rolls, everything comes with it. So you're going to have, if you have an offense that knows how to be run properly, that is run properly, you're not going to see people jumping off the line every play. You're not going to see holding every single play get called. You're not going to see wide receivers not checking in with the referees. You're not gonna see all that, and or if you do see it, you're gonna see it way less because all of those offensive positions now have more discipline. They know what they're doing. They know what their assignments are. The linemen know where they're supposed to block.
Yeah, but I'm hiring an offensive head coach.
It makes the defense way worse.
Hiring an offensive head coach is not. I mean, it could be, but it's not the overarching solution to the shit show that is this program right now. It could help. It could help. But at the same time, I would not be totally opposed to getting if we didn't go with Brian Jean-Marie, who, by the way, I think he's going to be a head coach somewhere. His defenses, for the most part, over 3 years have been steady. They've given us chances to win ball games. So if we didn't go that route, I would be more than okay bringing in a young, hungry defensive coordinator, letting him be the head coach. But for me to be okay with that, he would also have to have a solid offensive coordinator that he's pretty much going to act, the head coach is going to act like the CEO of a company where he's going to say, okay, I'm going to help run my defense. I don't know as much about offense. This is your show. And it's the accountability starts and ends with you.
Yeah, I like defense as much as the next guy. I really do. Some of my favorite teams have had amazing defenses, but we did have the Bull Shark defense under Taggart.
Tom Allen.
We did have
Tom Allen.
We had a good defense. I don't understand why you have to sacrifice one for the other.
When we had Tom Allen, who was an otherworldly defensive coordinator. And then, other than that, I don't know what games you were watching. We didn't have a good defense. We did not. We had to outscore every team in order to win. We had to run up the scoreboard to win against other teams once Tom Allen was gone.
And we literally,
pretty much.
The defense was just so gassed.
So what do? You either have a good offense or a good defense. There's no in between unless you have a guy like Tom Allen.
Personally, I would like.
Kinda at our level.
I would like to see just whoever the new head coach is act like that CEO. Run the part on the side of the ball he's comfortable with, but bring in an expert. Bring in as much of an expert as we're going to be able to get, and have them run the other side of the ball and say, "This is your show." So it could be an offensive guy, it could be a defensive guy. Whoever's going to win right now, just make sure you bring in a good coordinator opposite your specialty. And say, this is your show. I expect these results and hold them accountable to those results. Do we want to talk about sports that actually showed up this week? Well,
it's about to become beautiful for me.
We'll save that we'll save the best for last there because they've earned it. Ryan, we mentioned that men's basketball needed to wax Wofford at home.
Yes. They did.
They took care of business. Wofford, give them credit. They shoot the three really well.
USF did not let them shoot the three very well.
They played very well defensively that whole game. They held them to 31%, 6 of 19. Defense, they played well. The offense, the ball movement was beautiful.
If there's one thing, go on.
8 for 17 from the free throw line for 47%. That's nowhere near good enough. Turnovers were at 15, so a little bit less than normal. They forced 16 turnovers. So I've noticed this year, and anybody correct me if they think I'm misspeaking here, but it looks like there were even the games where we're having more turnovers than we should. We always seem to force more than we give up.
I think they're going to calm down on the turnovers, just because I think they're better than the way they're playing. They had a good game. David Collins and Justin Brown, they're becoming leaders, and everyone's doing a good job.
Justin Brown's 3-point jump shot right now. Carl, you mentioned this for about the St. Leo game. That stroke is just beautiful.
It really is, though. And I'll tell you what, if USF is playing a team that is going to live on the three and die by the three, they're probably going to die by the three against USF because, man, the Bulls did not give Wofford any shot at really having a good look from the outside because they knew that's what was coming. They were like, all right, if you want to dart inside, that's fine. We know that's not your strong point, and it worked all damn day against them. No, there's not going to be a lot of teams in which they are going to be live by the three, die by the three like that. But when we match up against them, we're going to do well.
Who impressed me was Marichevich, actually. Now, he did get burned a couple of times because what Wofford was running is they were going to pretty much move the ball around the three, isolate their big man in the middle, and if the three wasn't there, throw it in there. And, their big man was having a pretty solid game, but Marichevich was working hard. He was doing his best. I mean, he's not yet, no. But he was doing his best to, limit those chances, and I thought he did a fairly admirable job and pretty much dared Wofford to beat them from behind the arc, and they didn't. So
I will say that while I agree we played the three well, we were really playing the three, and a team that is better. When we play against the three like that, we'll find all the backdoor cuts and we'll find all of those open spaces much better than Wofford did.
So
and
when
we didn't have
Memphis,
to worry about that. We didn't have to worry about that, so that was nice.
That's what I'm saying about the fact that like, if we're playing teams that live by the three and die by the three, then we're going to be fine against them. Better teams, we can't rely on that, and we've already seen that against some teams.
I'm going to count it as a strength that we have very nice perimeter defense.
I will agree with that. Our perimeter defense is quite good.
And I just like the bounce back. They had an absolutely horrendous showing a week before, and they had to sit on that for 7 or 8 days. They looked pissed off.
On that thought, USF against, I believe that was a 2-3 zone that Wofford was playing against us.
I think so.
It's what it looked like to me. We can play against that pretty well. So that's another giant plus.
2-3 zone is the most basic defense you can run in basketball. It's the first one you're ever taught.
It's funny because that's what, when we had the tournament team and then the couple years after that, those were the teams that would absolutely shut us down, were the 2-3 defense teams, because we couldn't hit an outside shot. We're a team of driving and dishing, and
Mm-hmm.
we were also a 2-3 team, which is what struck me as funny.
No.
But well, I would think you'd see it every day in practice. You'd be better at against
That's
it.
surprising.
But it's funny. It's just a little difference in, I don't know, philosophies, I guess, but still producing two pretty darn good teams. Hopefully this team can match what that team did eventually. But
I'm not sure that at least this season we're going to match those tournament teams. I just think
not this.
what scares me is, and also just side note, of course it's us. Memphis's big guy is going to come back from suspension, and who's the first team he's going to see? South Florida. So, of course, but we're going to find out pretty quick. I think we're going to find out this week how good we are. We play Loyola Chicago tomorrow in the Cayman Islands. As I mentioned,
great test for us.
Well, Loyola is going to be a good test, but I think the bigger test, how do we handle that tournament? We have a game Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week. 3 games in 3 days.
Pretty good tournament team.
So I'm very curious to see. I'm very curious to see, how they do it. So especially when we get to the second half on Tuesday and the game on Wednesday, where we don't have the depth that we thought we were going to have because of an injury and Kerr leaving the program. How heavy are our legs going to be? But I'm also looking at the stats from the Wofford game, and BJ Mack only played 2 minutes. Jameer Chaplin only played 4. Rashawn Williams 13. Marichevich 14. And then everyone else is about 20 minutes plus. So I'm very curious to see, because I don't think you're going to ask David Collins to play 36 minutes a game for all 3 days. They could.
So I have some interesting numbers here from Loyola. They got blasted by Furman to the tune of a 24-point deficit. Furman is our first game after this tournament, but they also destroyed IUPUI by 23 points. We obviously lost.
Circle of suck.
That game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By a reasonable score. So we have some comparable wins here, or some comparable games here. I'm interested to see how we, after losing to IUPUI, are we really a 40-point underdog to this Loyola team? Probably not. They could have just had a good day. But
I think also for IUPUI, if in all fairness, we're not going to shoot that poorly many times. I think we have too many good shooters on the team because they went. I mean, that was the most ice cold shooting performance I've ever seen. I don't think we're going to shoot that way that often. So I'm not sure we would have won anyway, but we sure as hell don't get blown out without that kind of shooting performance. So I'm very curious to see, for my mind, they passed the first test where they came back 14 points against Wofford. I don't think that does it justice because it was about 20 for most of the second half. And then, they got a little bit closer at the end of the game, but I'm very curious to see what's going to happen.
It's going to be interesting.
I hope it was a little bit of the news before the game that Kerr was leaving.
Agreed.
I hope that's what it was. Time is the only thing that's going to tell, but hopefully that was part of the problem for that.
But this is sort of it's kind of similar to, kind of my feeling with football that, it doesn't feel great sometimes, but I trust Michael Kelly to do the job. Regardless of what happens, I trust Brian Gregory because even in that IUPUI game, effort was not the issue. It's just for whatever reason, it just wasn't our night where we couldn't shoot and everything just went to hell that night. So I'm very, I've said I'm curious to see how he's
showing a lot of progress. So that's another thing going. It's
exactly.
This program was very much a gigantic work in progress, and it's going to be a gigantic work in progress for the next couple of years. Yeah,
theoretically,
this was supposed to obviously be the year, but with Yetna going out, it's like, okay, we have to push that back another year. We'll get there, but we just need to give it time.
when Gregory got here, we were joking around saying it was year -2? So that makes this year 0.
Well, and the reason we were saying, if we think about this logically, the reason we were saying this year is the year is because Rideau leaves, right?
Yep.
Okay. So if we follow that track logically, we push it to next year. We don't know what this kid's gonna be, but we got someone to slot basically right in. So,
and even if he needs, even if we wanted to ease him in, Xavier Castaneda has been looking solid. He's playing some good minutes. He remember the biggest issue we had with him last year, where he was just terrified to shoot the 3-pointer the first 3/4 of that season.
To be fair, he still is.
Well, he went 2 for 4, and he's starting to hit those shots. And you can see with his shooting, he's starting to get a little bit more confident with that. So I've been pleased with his ability to run the point. So I'm very curious to see. We're obviously looking well ahead of where we should be, but David Collins and Castaneda with Murphy coming in, I'm comfortable with that. So just continue to make progress this year. Let's see how we come out on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and hopefully we'll have at least 2 wins to talk about next weekend.
All right, sounds good. Let's talk about women's basketball.
Hey, remember when I also told you that they would be pissed about losing to Baylor? Poor St. Francis. Poor St. Francis. Now,
oh my God, 24 points.
In all fairness, that was pretty much a glorified scrimmage.
24 points.
Not even 23
points. 23.
So,
Jesus. Oh my God.
St. Francis scored 11. St. Francis scored 11 points in the first quarter. They had 12 the rest of the game. After the first quarter, they shot 1 for 28 from the field. That is, I don't care if that's a glorified scrimmage or not. That was a defense that was pissed. They were pissed how Baylor ended. And boy, did they take their frustration.
Yeah, interesting stat. Not one USF player played more than 25 minutes.
Plus the debut of Elena Trisnicki, the Greek freshman. She was finally granted her eligibility. So
20 minutes netted her a rebound and 13 points.
I really hope she turns out to be a stud so we can have a Greek freak.
Oh, that'd be nice.
But in all seriousness, last week we went to the number 2 team in the country and the defending national champions on the road and gave them everything they could handle. We were within 4 points most of that end of the game, and they just pulled away at the end, just partly some poor officiating, but partially because they were the better team. Now we have even another weapon, and this was the perfect game for her to come in, a team that we should do this to, but she looked the part. So
there are no moral victories, but I'm not mad about the loss to Baylor.
I thought we did. Here's the fun part. We didn't play that great at Baylor, and we still almost beat them. If we get, Kyler, you were talking, 2 weeks ago about growing pains. If that's our growing pains, sign me up. I
didn't think they would be this put together this early. I mean, it's on record that I didn't, but I have been very pleasantly surprised by the team, and I just didn't think that they would be all the way up at their potential, and maybe they're not, and that's a scary thought.
Tyler,
but a scary thought.
In fairness to you, Tyler, I was arguing the other way that night, saying that Jose's going to put it together. I didn't see. I wasn't sure. I had the feeling Texas was going to be one of those games where, like usual, we play a top 15 team close, and then it just slips away in the last couple of minutes. But in reality, that game was, as Carl put it, not as close as the score said. I was expecting to probably lose by about 15 to 17 points to Baylor, probably be close for the first couple quarters. And it looked in the first 5 minutes that was going to happen. We couldn't buy a shot despite getting some good looks. We were playing good defense, but the ball just kept going in because Baylor has good shooters. But every time Baylor punched and knocked them down, they got back out and punched back. And that's, for me, I can take wins or losses in sports. I appreciate the effort. And those girls played hard for 40 minutes. So if this is the growing pains, watch out, American Conference. This is not going to be a fun season for you.
The number 22 Bulls will be playing in San Diego State, or is it South Dakota State?
South Dakota.
South Dakota State in the next game. That's a home game, so everybody should show up. Except don't actually wait. Carl cut all that out. That's on Thanksgiving. This is an 11 a.m. game.
Well, you have to have the early
before
game.
your Thanksgiving turkey.
All right. Hey, Bulls fans, if you're in Tampa on Thanksgiving and you don't have anywhere to go for breakfast,
The game's in Mexico.
Is the game in Mexico? It says at
Game's in
USF.
Mexico.
All right.
Game's in
Drive to
Mexico.
Mexico.
Ryan doesn't know what he's doing.
Dude, I'm looking at the Google sheet and it says at USF. It says nothing about Mexico.
We've disproved that Google many times in this our experience. So.
It's so much easier to use than the USF website. All right, Carl, cut all that out and put in a blooper reel with the rest of the bullshit I say one day.
I do want to ask you guys a question though, because the tournament they're playing a tournament in Mexico on Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week. And so my question to you is: we play South Dakota State, Florida Gulf Coast, and then the big one's Notre Dame. Notre Dame was a Final Four team last year. Carl, correct me if I'm wrong. There was national runner-ups and losing an absolutely fantastic game to Baylor. So my question to you is: South Dakota State, that's a team we should blow out. Florida Gulf Coast, we should probably blow them out. How do you manage your roster? So we have, trying to look back at the stats from the game. As Ryan mentioned, nobody played more than 25 minutes. You have to think there's going to be some minute restrictions for those first two games to make sure we're as healthy as we can be to play Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would be surprised if anybody played more than 25 minutes again against San Diego State, unless they keep it like to close to 10 points in the fourth quarter. FGCU, I don't know if they're any good this year.
They're okay.
Yeah, same story. Maybe up to 30 minutes, but I don't think anyone goes higher than that. Notre Dame's the biggest test of the early season until Connecticut.
Well, there is a common opponent with Florida Gulf Coast. They did play St. Francis on Friday. They did win 97, but they gave up 64 points to the team we just gave up only 23. However, they did also beat C 72-50.
All right, cool.
Well, then if we lose them, at least they beat C.
Anybody who beats C is good in my book.
Yes.
Yep.
So, big weekend for the women. I'm very curious to see how they play in Notre Dame. Unfortunately, that'll be on Flow Hoops, and I will not be spending the money to watch them.
Of course not. No way.
How much is it for one game?
I can't remember what it was last year, but the stream's also okay. So there was a free stream, I think, when the men were in this tournament 3 or 4 years ago, and the stream was okay, but it'll be on USF Bulls Unlimited, so I'd rather listen to Derek Sharp anyway.
Yeah.
Is that all we got for women's or basketball as a whole? Any last notes on basketball?
Yeah, big weekend. Both teams 3 games in 3 days, so.
Yeah, go team.
All right. Men's or women's soccer first? I'll let you guys choose.
The men, they lost 4-1 to Louisville to end their season. They gave up 2 quick goals. They gave up 2 quick goals in the second half, and it was really a pretty disappointing performance, to be fair. That being said, the mission of this year was to get back to the NCAA tournament. They did that.
Improvement year over year. Keep it up next year. We're good.
It wasn't always pretty. This team gutted their way into the tournament, so I wish we could, have shown a little bit more life, but to be fair, Louisville also just beat their second round opponent, so they are now in the last 16. So it's not like we lost to a team we shouldn't have lost to, but it's
Louisville clearly figured something out during the regular season. So it is what it is. My take on that game was entirely wrong.
It was really funny how wrong it was because you were laughing like a lunatic.
It was
awful.
They're one of those teams
They were ranked high for a reason. They didn't play up to their expectations, and they figured it out later in the year. I think that's what they are, and that's
all there is to it.
It's a shame that that's what it is. But
to get out of the ACC conference, though, especially with teams like North Carolina, Wake Forest, George Kiefer at NC State, you get battle tested. I'm not saying the American you don't get battle tested, but
the ACC is a different level.
No question. So, Bob Butenhorn, hats off to you. You got this team back to where it needs to be. Next year, though, I don't think we settle for just one tournament win combined between the American and the NCAA.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it very much depends on what happens with the new players we're bringing in, because the last couple of years we haven't lost too many huge players. This year we are losing a couple of key members.
We're losing Harrison.
We're losing our netminder. We're losing Josue Monge in the midfield, and he's been a very key member of this team, running that engine room. And then we're also losing Jonathan Rosales, who has been an absolute rock at left back for the last 4 years. He is going to be hard to replace because he was one of the best fullbacks in the conference, straight up.
I tell you what, though. Who's our center back again? Just
Juwan Brown.
There's Devane Brown, there's Marcus Murphy, and then there's Sal Mazzaferro.
I'm talking about Brown.
He was incredible.
You're telling me he gets another off season to get better? Sign me up.
Okay, but he can't cover the center back and fullback position. Here's the thing.
Chance.
No,
I know.
I know. He's almost fast enough too, but unfortunately, I don't think we quite realized just how much Rosales really did bring to the team. He did so much work going backwards and forwards. It really was incredible to watch. As I've started to really learn how to watch soccer and analyze and watch how people play and how well they're actually playing in the game. He was a very understated member of the team, but we're going to have that giant hole missing next year, and it's going to be so incredibly obvious.
1,000% clear. I agree with everything you're saying.
I know.
But I'm hoping that whoever we do bring in to replace him, the deficiency and the difference in talent will be made up for the improvement of what Brown's going to do in this offseason. Because I have never been more excited to see how a defensive player improves than for Brown next year, hoping to see him get even better. Because he looks just... Every time I've gone and watched a game for soccer, he stands out completely. I enjoy watching him play center back.
So
don't forget how deadly he is on set pieces too.
Yeah. So the thing about here's something else to consider. It really depends on what kind of system we have going into next year, because the last couple of years, Bob has been going kind of back and forth between a couple different formations and making sure that the players are kind of adaptable. They can play several different formations if needed. This year was a very, very firm identity. 5-3-2, pretty much the entire season. We had one game where we didn't do that. And it was a 5-2-3 instead. That's the only difference the entire season. So the thing with and Javane was playing center back sweeper. Yeah. So really, as much as he can improve, what we're losing out wide on the wing, it's going to need to be made up for by the progression of Marcus Murphy, actually, because that's really who was playing next to Rosales out wide. And even this year, he wasn't really playing necessarily with Rosales per se, because Rosales was playing pretty much kind of between a whole bunch of players. It was very interesting, and it worked out really, really well, obviously. But really, if anyone on the existing team right now is going to be making up for that, it's pretty much going to be Marcus learning how to be just a little bit better in the back. And he's already a very good center back. He's just going to need to learn to be just that much better.
The one thing that doesn't concern me, though, and I will preface this is not a knock on Harrison. He was phenomenal for us. Great guy. You just the kind of guy you just love to have on your program. The reason I'm not concerned as much with his departure is ever since we've been freshmen, we've always had a good keeper. Brendan Muhammad, Spossier, and Harrison. We always have a good keeper. We have a couple, pretty decent backups, so we'll see what we have, when they have to be the guy. But I just wish Harrison didn't get shelled in his last out. Not saying it's his fault, but that's a rough way for him to go out, especially since his last conference game was ended on a handball. But
don't remind me.
I do feel like if there's a position that you can go by on a lot of raw talent, if you have a really good, I don't want to say quarterback, but that type of person on the defense, I feel like a good raw talent keeper can do okay if he's got someone at center back who's running the show.
Which we do.
Am I wrong in that?
No, I can agree with that.
A good back line can hide a fair amount of deficiencies in a goalkeeper. It won't help when you need that top shelf save that will inevitably happen. But yes, a good back line can hide some deficiencies in keeper, especially someone coming in that's going to be new.
Cough, cough, Cat Elliott.
You're not even kidding.
All right, let's not go into that.
But, going into, and this is probably going to be, at least for Carl and I, somewhat of an emotional segment.
Oh, God.
The women gutted, they battled, any term you want to use for that, fell 2-1 today to Florida State in the Sweet 16, but what a ride.
I just want to know why you only said you and Carl.
Because we were the ones who were talking beforehand, be like, this is going to be a more emotional segment. I know you've been following along, but I know you're not more of the emotional type.
That's kind of true.
So the game itself.
They're national champs for a reason.
Yes, FSU was national champs last year for a reason. But USF definitely had their chances. Evelyn Vian hit the post at one point to miss going up 2-0.
What happens if that goes in?
Oh, man, what happens if that goes in? Aubrey McGrath puts USF up 1-0 within the first couple minutes. It's in the 5th minute of the game. Everything's going nuts. And it's a fairly evenly played game for the most part until about the last 20 minutes of the first half. And then USF sort of starts to switch off a little bit, and FSU really starts to take control. They managed to get one back in the 45th minute. FSU was very, very good in that first half, moving our defense around, getting us scrambling. We desperately needed to get to half, and if that goal doesn't go in, I think USF does manage to enter the second half significantly better off than they did. What did not help was the fact that the ref just incessantly called against USF.
What was it, 29 fouls?
Yes, it was absolutely
horrendous. Were we playing that dirty?
No,
we were the more physical team. We didn't deserve 29.
No,
it was the more physical team.
No, I think yellow cards was 6-1.
It was bullshit. It was straight absolute garbage.
5-5.
Yeah, 29 fouls to USF, 11 to FSU. You do not have that kind of foul discrepancy unless there's something else going on there. Yes, I understand that that's just that ref style. We've seen this ref before many, many times. He hates letting physical play go. He's a South American ref. He prefers the Flair style. Physical contact is not a thing for him. Unfortunately, that's what USF does best, and FSU damn well knew it. So I'm not hating on FSU for gaming the system there because they absolutely did several times late in the game. Look, take advantage of it if that advantage is there. This is on the ref for being absolute dog shit. The fact that, oh my God, I'm so mad about that.
Well, and it also played into FSU's hand because I don't know. When I played soccer when I was younger, it was always when we knew we were going against the better team. It was be physical and get in their head. And so, I mean,
well, part of it you can lend to that, but at the same time, USF is just generally a physical team.
Yeah,
that's nothing to say. Hey, we need to get in their head. That's just how a lot of this team plays. Aubrey McGrath, Katie Kitching, they're very physical wingers. That's just their play style, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing with a big physical winger going out there and just kind of banging around with the fullbacks. That's how we beat Florida, after all, honestly.
And Washington.
And Washington. They just weren't ready. They just weren't ready for that. Honestly, I think if we get the same ref that we had against Washington, then this game probably goes to overtime. The refs, the fouls are significantly fairer, and USF doesn't end up with. And if USF gets through, they don't end up with like 4 players suspended in the next round because of yellow card accumulation.
Is yellow card accumulation a thing in the NCAA tournament?
I believe it is. We were having a conversation with a couple players beforehand. Yeah, we were about to find out, and if we did, we were going to be absolutely hosed in the next game.
Because I think it would have been McGrath. It would have been
McGrath, Blethyn. I think Roberts might have. I can't remember honestly. It was going to be bad though. I'll tell you. I will
say now that since we are talking about Blethyn and McGrath, this senior class of Aubrey McGrath, Andrea Hochstarter, Evelyn Viens, Rebecca Anderson, and Bree Blethyn. Thank you. That was what a ride. What a ride it has been. USF Soccer put out that this senior class compiled 117 goals, 64 assists, 298 points, and compiled 23,495 minutes played. Holy crap!
So Evelyn Viens, obviously, she gets all the glory because she's the striker. She's the one who is shattering every damn record.
Mm-hmm.
What record does she not hold?
Yeah, pretty much. We need to give more credit to everyone else on that team because look, they have been so good the last 4 years. Unfortunately, it's impossible to say that this team is not going to take a step backwards next year because of what we're losing. Blethyn has been a fantastic fullback for us on so many levels, going forwards and backwards. It's going to be really hard to replace someone with that level of talent.
Even look at Hochstarter. We all thought, her junior year was not her best. For whatever reason, she was just not always on her game last year. We saw her freshman and sophomore form this year, and she even took a couple steps forward this year. She was fantastic this year.
Hochstarter has been quietly possibly our best player this year. She's been so good.
She just does the little things well.
She does. Honestly, she's been my favorite player to watch this year. And even through Viens literally being an absolute goal scoring machine. She's been so good. It's really hard to really state how she's been. She's done pretty much all the little things right. She had a bit of a rough game today. She couldn't really get any rhythm going, but that's also in the fact that the ref never really let the game start to flow. When it did start to flow, USF was able to step into it, get some offense going, and we looked pretty good. We looked like we belonged on the same field. When the game was choppy, when it was cutting up, that's when USF started to struggle, and that's when FSU was able to take advantage of it. The penalty they won on, however, I will be mad about because Evelyn got brought down the box the exact same way, and the ref's like, nope, waved it off. And then Blethyn goes into a challenge the same way in the same box, and the ref's like, nope, that's a foul. And it's like, all right, well, you know what? Eat shit.
Got to protect those big teams, man.
To go off what you were saying about Hochstarter, in my opinion, we beat Washington because we controlled the midfield for a good portion of that game. What I loved, and I only got to watch because of work, I only got to watch my lunch hour and saw the first half. We controlled that midfield between Hawksdaughter and McGrath. They knew when to push up the field. They knew when to go.
They give the entire midfield credit for that game. Hawksdaughter, McGrath, Pelletier LaRoche, and Rebecca Anderson.
They all did a fantastic job because they knew when to push up the field. They knew when to send it back. We got a little too fancy at times, and we gave up some stupid counterattacks. But all in all, they ran that field. Washington is a very defensive team.
They dominated that midfield, and that's how you win games.
Washington's a team that they need to have the first goal because their whole thing is we're going to have a solid back line. You're not going to score. We're going to wait for our chance, and we're going to counter. The second BN scored, that changed that entire game because now suddenly you can't just sit back and wait for the game to come to you when you're trailing. And then the fact that BN's, and I think what might have been her greatest goal, I mean, she gets tackled from behind, clean tackle, but both players are down. It reminded me
barely clean. It was barely clean.
It was still clean though.
It was clean. It was considered clean by the ref. I don't wholly agree with that from the angle.
She got, in my opinion, she got the ball, but it reminded me of the Oklahoma drill where two players on their back, who gets up first and who wants it more. The ends gets up, gets the ball, pokes it past the keeper, and let the celebration begin. And this is the first time in program history we've gotten to the Sweet 16, and it feels pretty damn good to, finally get over that hump. So it's with the senior class. I mean, looking at football right now, there's a lot of times it is very, very shitty to be a USF fan. There are very few times where you can just sit back, have pride in our teams, and just enjoy the ride. The last 3 weeks, we lose a heartbreaker in Orlando in a game we probably should have won 3-4-1. The next 3 weeks, we beat C. We beat Memphis. We reclaim our crown. We beat UF for the first time, and we've had a couple of close calls, but we finally do it, and especially in Gainesville, and left absolutely no freaking doubt that the NCAA screwed up our draw for the first 2 rounds. And they go in, they beat a very good Washington team in the Pac-12 who has to play Southern Cal, UCLA, and all the powerhouses out west, and they get the job done. Sydney Martinez, brick wall the whole tournament, and it's just, there's very few times where you can just be thrilled and proud to be a Bulls fan. This has been an awesome 3 weeks.
USF scored what is going to be probably one of maybe 2 goals FSU is going to allow the entire tournament.
Oh, agreed. And the expression of don't be sad it's over, be happy it happened. Yes, I'm sad this team's over. I'm sad we couldn't get to the Elite Eight because if we get by FSU, we get to have that conversation of how far can we realistically go? Is the College Cup appearance in the cards? Didn't quite happen. It's probably not going to happen for a couple years because we're going to take a step back just because the talent we're losing. But I've said this the last 2 weeks. I'll say it again. Denise Schulte-Brown, your coaching staff, well done. I don't always agree with you, but this was incredible. I think USF fans needed this right now, especially the ones who care about soccer, the ones who have been just getting their dick punched every week by football and everything else, with all the bad news coming out about basketball. We needed this. We needed these wins. And it just, for once, for 3 weeks, it felt damn good to be a Bulls fan.
Speaking about punching dicks, USF hockey has been a shining example of what it means to be a team. This whole season, they've been really, really good. I just want to give a shout out to them. They absolutely annihilated FSU this week. They won today against Wentworth. They're
JG Wentworth. Sorry.
8-7 Kevin Cash now.
Oh, I already made that joke on Twitter. By the way, you can check us out on Twitter at BullseyeCast for the worst takes out of all of us. I run it. It's awful. It's amazing.
It's a journalism.
It's not a
No,
journalism.
it isn't. No, it is very much not.
No, it's not.
We've
Not
never
even
been,
journalism.
nor have ever wanted to be a journalism, but USF hockey, just because they interact with me a lot, I like them. Been to a few games. If you are bored at any point and have nothing else to do, or you're fed up with mainstream USF sports and you want to chill out, literally, go to a USF hockey game. These guys are awesome. They played the number one in the country, Michigan Wolverines, in 2 weeks, so keep an eye out for tickets. It'll be a home game at Center Ice, so everybody go.
USF hockey was my first going away party, beating South Carolina 1-0 in overtime.
Yeah, they put on a show. It's a lot of fun. Definitely go to the games.
So I do need to go back to women's soccer for one more moment, just for my own little monologue. Just basically saying that, like, the team we saw this year for women's soccer is this is the one that we're going to need to look to in the future and compare it against all of the sports. This is probably the best team in USF history across every sport because of what they've accomplished this year and what they've been accomplishing the last several years. This senior class has done so much. They've done nothing but cover themselves in glory since they've been at USF. They've done things that have not been done in the program before. It's really hard to emphasize just how important they've been for this program and how much we're going to miss them going forward. This, in my opinion, is the best team that USF has ever had. It's going to be really hard to look towards any other team and say, yeah, that team was probably comparatively better because just how much this class has managed to accomplish. And the thing is, for me, like, this game was hard for me when it was over because I have, like, now that I'm not officially covering them anymore, I got to know a couple of them a little bit, and it's like, man, it's going to be hard knowing that they're never going to be playing for USF again. Some of them will go on to play professionally, and it's going to be spectacular. Their careers will be something to follow, but some of them probably will. This is them hanging up their cleats. They probably will not play competitive soccer ever again, and that's a hard thing to really accept, even when you know it's happening. I knew when I got knocked out of the state tournament playing high school tennis, that was it for me. I was probably never going to play competitive tennis again. It's such a heartbreaking thing to really realize once it's actually happened, especially for some of these girls, that's like, they've been so special and they really do deserve to go on, but some of them probably won't. And it's like, well, that's it. They deserve better for their last game, but looking back in their season, thank you guys. It's been nothing short of special watching all of you. It's been so much fun. It's been just fabulous.
And no shame with that, with what you're saying. It's like, I will always remember when my state tournament ended in high school, the last professional anything I've ever played, or last organized tournament I've ever played, I teared up a little bit. It's an emotional time. It's truly the end of an era for women's soccer at South Florida. And Canadian women's national team, get your shit together and get Evelyn in in your program. She's Canadian.
All right. How about this? How about let's talk about, because we're reliving some nice memories right now about the women's soccer team and talking about who might be the best team ever. Let's talk about what we're thankful for at our time at USF. Beyond the women's soccer team, we'll talk about them. Let's go around the room and go over, all of our time at USF. What we're most thankful for. Carl, if you want to start, go ahead.
No, honestly, I have to go with literally the women's soccer team the last 3 years because they have been absolutely special for the program, and they've done things that have never been seen before, and these are things that we got to hold witness. It's hard to say anything other than that right now because it's like, yo, we got to see them do things that have never been done in this program before. That's pretty freaking cool.
You're right. Phil?
I won't, just because Carl already used that. Don't get me wrong, I'm very thankful. This has been an awesome ride. It's kind of a little emotional for me with them as well, just because, now that I'm living out in Oklahoma, that's kind of the last senior class from when, I was still at USF. So for me, that's even kind of, that's more closure that I am now, 3 or 4 years out of college. But, it was a hell of a ride. I don't know how I stayed silent when I was listening to the last 5 minutes of the Washington game. Otherwise, my staff would have looked at me like I was insane. Well, look at me more like I'm insane. But I'm thankful for Mike Kelly, honestly, because I know he's going to clean up football. I know we'll be okay there. And he's just taking steps just to put the right people in the right positions and just get this athletic department to where it needs to be. And what is just very encouraging is he was the COO of the college football playoff. So he didn't have to take this job, but he took it because he wanted to. We've already seen results with the one program he has made a coaching change in cross country. The fact that we took Warren I 4 points for the first time since its inception. So I'm grateful that we seem to have the right man in charge of this program. So, and plus, how cool was it to see when the women beat Washington? How cool was it to see all of his social media access or all of the social media presence with that, just congratulating the team. And then how many other kind of big profile guys, the mayor of Tampa was even jumping on this bandwagon. Now, part of that's the play, but it's also, when you have the right management in place, everything just takes care of itself.
I don't know. You guys know that I've had a long history with USF sports in general.
Longest out of any of us.
Just because both my parents went there. And I don't know. I'm kind of just more grateful for the school as a whole. It's been such a big part of my life, my whole life. And to go there for my 4 years, it's what I had been looking forward to my whole life, essentially. And I don't know. I just really enjoyed all my time there. And it's sometimes hard to think about now because I'm moving into such a different direction, getting married in April and all of that. And I don't know where I'll end up maybe in a couple years from now. And to have that not be close anymore will be probably difficult for me. So just for the school as a whole, really, that I was able to be where I wanted to be. And it was, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about it besides
that's perfect
for the school as a whole.
I can agree with that. It's I've told you guys this before. I grew up throughout high school. I wanted to go to Florida. I wanted to be a Gator. And
idiot,
fucking numpty.
I toured. Getting a little mushy this episode, but I toured USF. It felt like home. It felt like home right away. All I can say is I'm really happy I wore a state shirt to the first Beef Studs meeting freshman year because that's how I met Carl. Because
hey, my name's on the back of there.
Had the same shirt. But I can agree, Tyler. It's been going to South Florida was the best decision I made. I mean, I met all you guys, so I guess something worked out pretty well.
Or your life is ruined forever.
Debatable.
I'm going to go with what Ryan said.
No, I was going to go the same route with what I'm thankful for, but first I'm going to read what Juan is thankful for, and did Justin... Yes, okay. Juan said he's thankful for his friends and memories and the connections that he made in Tampa and at USF.
The generic basic bitch.
Yeah, well, they've all that, but he's thankful for all the joy that he's gotten through the program or through USF as a whole. This didn't have to be a sports centric thing. It's just something positive that we could all hang our hats on, because I think we all agree we had a good time at USF, win or lose, in our sports teams. Justin says that he's thankful for the season being almost over. You could also just say the season's over now and not watch next week's game for football.
Yeah, I'll be able to do that.
I might still go to the game, even though I said I'm not. Someone's like, hey, I might have a ticket available if you need to go. I'm like, oh, you bastard. I was not going to go to this game if I was paying for it, but if it's a free ticket...
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm
Damn it!
I told myself I'm not going to watch.
Oh, I'm going to watch. I'm not going to play that
through the night.
I don't know if I'm even going to be able to watch because I'm going to be out with family.
At 8 p.m.? You going Black Friday?
8 p.m. Okay, so Thanksgiving for my family is super weird this year. We're going to like a restaurant instead of doing it at anyone's house because it's just easier to coordinate with old people.
Yeah.
But they like to eat late, so I imagine dinner won't even start till 8. So I'll just keep it on the phone. But anyway, so
yeah,
I'm gonna end with what I'm thankful for my time at USF. I'm thankful for everything that we get to do now. After having my 4 years at USF, I had no idea that the day that I decided to go to USF that I would end up doing a podcast about our team's crappy or otherwise. That I'd have all my friends in a group chat that I made, that all these friends I made at USF have, we will argue from time to time, we'll have our spats, but I think at the end of the day we found our best friends in college. Carl and Phil, you guys have been my roommates for years, and it's still difficult to not live with you. Luckily, what I'm truly thankful for is through you guys I met Haley, who's the love of my life. We're engaged to be married the year after Tyler gets married. So it's it's a huge deal for me that I went to USF. I almost didn't. I was about 2 weeks from my first day of classes at FAU when I got the letter that I got accepted to USF. I could have stayed.
Everything
could have stayed in
for a
Boca.
reason.
Could have been miserable. Could have been with shitty roommates who, they might have been fine. It might have all been fine, but it definitely wouldn't have been what I had now. USF prepared me for life in a way that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. I'm very thankful for everything.
Go Bulls.
Any closing remarks?
A bunch of
saps.
Let's turn up the heat.
A bunch of saps.
Let's turn up the heat. It's USF hate week. UCF hate week.
All right.
Fuck the Knights.
I forgot we have to do this.
We gotta make predictions.
Of us are sad.
All right,
no,
boys.
I'm just gonna say,
it's show.
Defense keeps us in it. 21-17.
21-17 Knights.
I'm not saying who I think the winner is because I refuse to speak their name.
You got to say it. It's predictions. Okay. 21-17 Knights from Tyler. Carl.
28-17 C.
17s across the board. Phil.
I'm going with my heart, not my head, and my absolute refusal to predict C to win. 28-21. The road sign's coming home.
I'm going to read Juan and Justin, since they're not here tonight. Juan says the score will be bad.
Well, yeah, that's accurate.
Probably.
It's so innumerably bad
Cheater.
he couldn't give me numbers.
You fucking cheater, Juan.
And resident lawyer says UCF will win 41-6.
Oh,
I'm going to go the other end of the spectrum. I say the players somehow pull it all together, and we live in a wormhole, and everything is right, and somehow we win a game 20. It's going to be weird. It's going to be like a scoregami. Let's go 43-16. USF wins.
Oh my god!
It's gonna be like we went through the scary door.
I will go streaking through the quad if we win.
I will join you on that, Tyler.
All right, we have that on a recording. Tyler,
I don't want you
and Carl. No, we have it on recording. It's now on the record that Tyler.
We don't have to do it
and
together.
Carl will go streaking if that is the score.
Let's also remember that Carl also said he would fund the trophy for the war on I-4.
And then they did it themselves. So,
anything is possible.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that maybe something happens and we do something insane. And
rivalry weeks.
I'm not optimistic. All right, so those are the predictions, and that's it for the podcast this week. I think it was a fun time. Tune in next week for the aftermath of what happens against the USF and UCF. It's going to be a shit show, and we're all expecting it to be bad. Except, yep.
Happy Thanksgiving,
if
everyone.
you have something you want to drop on our Twitter, what you're thankful for from your time at USF, or what you're thankful for in general, I don't care. Drop it on a DM or drop it on the comment underneath the tweet I just sent out about sending them in.
And if you don't follow us on Twitter, find us at the Bullseye Podcast.
You can find us anywhere podcasts are found. And if you can't find us on YouTube, then it is what it is. That's it for the show. See you later, guys.